So hey guys, my name is Lena West, and I am the founder of Influence Expansion. It's the only online social media training program for women entrepreneurs. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the gift of asking. And I'm doing it because asking is such a huge part of how I got my start, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But any minute, yeah. So the word ask, it's three little letters, very small word, but it carries a lot of weight. It's the implications of asking. When you ask people, oh, well, why don't you just ask for help? People cringe as if, you've asked them to like wear neon pants or something like that. So, and the reason why this is important to me, so I'll kind of talk about that, is people always ask me, how did I get my start? How did I start my company? Why is it that I'm successful? Why does American Express ask me to keynote events, etc.? And I say, well, you know what? I just ask. I always say to people, if you don't ASK, you don't GET. And people love this. People have created signage about ASK, GET. Some people really like it, and then most people don't get it. Some people just don't understand what I'm talking about when I say you have to ASK to GET. You have to put yourself out there if you expect to receive anything in return. So let's look at why we don't ask. There are a couple reasons why we don't ask, but mainly it's usually stuff that's inflicted upon us as we go through our childhood, right? So we blame our parents for everything, right? But I always say that our gift of asking is stolen from us when we're kids, right? So what do we do to kids? If you've been a kid, which all of us have, or if you have a kid, what do we do? Before we get in the store, now we're gonna go in the store and don't you ask for anything, because I'm not buying it, right? Or we'll say, they get to that stage and they'll say, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why not? Well, why? And we say, well, stop asking why. Right? Or they'll ask someone an inappropriate question like, oh, I like your bracelet. How much does that cost? You don't ask how much something costs. That's impolite. So the gift is ripped from us. And here's what happens. Here's the sad part. We grow up to be adults who are overburdened. We learn to not ask, right? But we grow up to be adults that are overburdened. We are angry at the world. We are overwhelmed. We are put upon, we are resentful, and we learn that it's okay for other people to ask, just not us. Like, it's cool for you to ask if you want to ask, but not us. And so we have this society of people who are just angry and people who don't ask for help. And this is, not to make light of certain things, but, this is when people like kind of snap and like bring a gun into a mall and stuff, right? Because they're just taxed with living life without any support system. They become burnt out, they become annoyed, and this is a huge, huge, huge challenge. I remember seeing something on Oprah, which I won't go into right now, but this is where we end up, and then we wonder like, oh, well, why are people so upset? Why are people so angry? Why are people so mad at the world? Why doesn't anybody speak to anybody anymore? Why don't people smile at each other on the street? It's not my business. I'm not going to speak to anybody, because we're all busy. We're all trying to get to the next thing. That's not the worst of it. The worst of it really is that when we don't ask for help, for input, for guidance, we really rob and stop the cycle of someone being able to give, right? So, I was in a store, a dude in front of me, he needed 33 cents. I gave the cashier person $1, and the guy came back in the snow to give me 35 cents. And I'm like, dude, would you just let me give? Just let me give to you, right? So how do we start asking? How do we turn this ship around? The very first thing that you have to do is ask. Just ask a friggin' question, ask for help. You don't have to move your 5-room home by yourself. Ask your friends. You don't have to figure out that coding problem by yourself. Ask your friends, right? And then do it again. Keep asking, because you give an opportunity for people to give to you when you ask. I love this, and I'm going to close this with this quote from Steve Jobs. I love this. There's a video on YouTube. If you Google it, you'll find it. You got to pick up the phone. You got to ask. You got to act, and you got to be willing to fail, get rejected, to crash and burn. I don't know. I'll figure out the rest of it later. But essentially, he's telling you to ask. Thanks.